5 words that got a 9-year-old boy erased from society. Please, sir, I want some more. Because if one hungry child can stand up and say, I deserve more than this, every single one of them can, and the system can't let that happen. Picture this: a long dining hall, bare walls, tin bowls, a line of boys so thin their shadows look thicker than their bodies. At the center of the table, the great empty cauldron of gruel has just been scraped clean, and hunger is clawing at every stomach. And against this silence of fear, one small boy stands up, carries his bowl to the master, and says, Please, sir, I want some more. The board charges him with ingratitude. They offer money to anyone who will take him away, literally paying to make the problem disappear. In 2026, they're still paying to make the problem disappear. They just call it a severance package now. Here's why that scene is terrifying. Oliver isn't asking for extra. He's asking for enough. And every adult in that room hears it as a declaration of war. Because if one hungry child can stand up and say, I deserve more than this, then all of them can. The system doesn't punish Oliver for wanting food. It punishes him for refusing to accept that hunger is what he deserves. If this story hits differently than you expected, hit subscribe. You'll want to see where this goes. Oliver Twist is born on a stormy night in a parish workhouse. His mother staggers in from the road. It collapses during delivery, and within moments of hearing her child's first cry, she's gone. The new baby is christened Oliver Twist by a parish beadle named Mr. Bumble, who enjoys the small power of naming children who cannot protest. In 2026, we still live in a world where people rename you without permission, calling you difficult instead of honest, entitled instead of deserving, ungrateful instead of aware of your worth. From his very first breath, and other people are writing Oliver's story for him. And if you've ever felt like the narrative of your life was being controlled by someone else's assumptions, you already know what room Oliver is standing in. Workhouses were meant to be places of relief for the poor. In reality, they felt more like prisons. Families were split up. Food was cheap and scanty by design, on the theory that charity should never be too comfortable. If you have ever felt like a number on a form instead of a person, if you've ever been processed by a system that saw you as a problem to solve rather than a human being to help, you already understand this place. Charles Dickens knew what it felt like to be Oliver, because he was Oliver once. As a boy, he watched his father sent to a debtor's prison and was sent to work in a factory pasting labels on bottles while other kids went to school. Every word of this novel is revenge. At its core, as the question he presses on us is simple and brutal. Who decides what you deserve? Your own heart, or the people who label you before you say a word? Oliver is transferred to the main workhouse. We see him and the other boys living on so little food that their bones show through their clothes. The board of guardians who supervise the place eat well, talk about duty, and then insist that the pauper children are fed too much. These are people who fill their own bowls while telling starving children they're receiving charity. One evening, driven by desperate hunger, the boys whisper among themselves. They decide someone must ask for more gruel, and the lot falls on Oliver. Now imagine you're in that room. You're 9 years old. Your stomach hurts all the time. You haven't eaten a full meal in months. The other boys draw straws. You lose. And now you're standing in front of a fat man who just ate until he was full. You're holding an empty bowl. Your survival depends on you being grateful for scraps. Do you ask? Or do you sit back down and stay quiet? The next meal, trembling, Oliver walks up to the master holding his bowl. Everything in the room stops as Oliver says, "Please, sir, I want some more." You can almost feel every child watching him and thinking, if he can get away with this, maybe we all can. The reaction is explosive. Then the master stares, as if he has been struck. Mr. Bumble is summoned, outraged. The board meets as though a crime has been committed. They see not a starving child, but a rebellious pauper, daring to ask for better treatment. Here's the thing that should terrify you. The board doesn't charge Oliver with theft. They charge him with ingratitude. In 2026, we call this not being a team player. We call it difficult. We call it quiet quitting. The language changed. Here the punishment didn't. They offer £5 to anyone who will take Oliver as an apprentice, literally paying to make the problem disappear. If you've ever been managed out of a job for culture fit, you know exactly what room you're standing in. Oliver becomes a symbol inside his own story. He is not clever, not a fighter. What makes him stand out is his refusal to become hard or cruel, even when the world seems determined to crush him. When an undertaker named Sowerbury offers to take Oliver as an apprentice, the board is delighted. The Sowerbury household gives Oliver a little more food than the workhouse, but not much comfort. Two servants, Noah Claypole and Charlotte, take special pleasure in tormenting him. Noah is a charity boy himself, but now that he has a position, he bullies Oliver to feel powerful. Think about that for a second. Noah was once exactly where Oliver is. He was pushed down, humiliated, and powerless. And the moment he got a crumb of status, the moment he stopped being the lowest person in the room, he found someone new to push down. When was the last time you got a tiny bit of power and immediately used it the way it had been used on you? We all have. One day, Noah goes too far. He insults Oliver's mother, sneering at her namelessness. For the first time, Oliver's patience breaks. He flies at Noah in a fury, beating him with all the pent-up rage of a child who has been humiliated since birth. It is not a calculated rebellion. It is a cry of pain, the sound of someone who has been silent too long finally finding their voice, even if it comes out as violence. The adults respond with predictable outrage. Oliver is beaten, locked in a dark room, and threatened. The conviction becomes clear. If he stays, he will be destroyed. Before dawn, Oliver slips out and points himself towards London. If you have ever looked around and thought, if I stay here, I will not survive, then you know exactly what pushes him onto the road. Days later, starving and desperate, on the outskirts of London, he meets a boy who will teach him that kindness can be the most dangerous trap of all. A little older than Oliver, this stranger introduces himself as Jack Dawkins, though he is far better known as the Artful Dodger. He sizes Oliver up, sees a child who is hungry and alone, and offers him food and friendship with easy confidence. To Oliver, who has known almost no kindness, the Dodger seems like a miracle. Jack promises a free bed and a generous gentleman who will take Oliver in. He leads the boy through a maze of narrow streets, deeper into the city's underbelly. Oliver follows, trusting, too tired to be suspicious. He has escaped the workhouse and the undertaker, but he is walking straight into London's criminal world. The place where the Dodger brings Oliver is an old, broken-down house in a filthy part of the city. Upstairs, a group of boys are laughing over handkerchiefs and pocketbooks. In the middle of them sits an old man with restless, glittering eyes. This is Fagin. Fagin welcomes Oliver with exaggerated warmth, calling him "my dear." He produces sausages, drinks, and fires. For a child who has slept in barns and eaten scraps, this sudden abundance feels almost unreal. And here's the question you need to ask yourself. What's the difference between a family and a cult? And sometimes it's just whether you're allowed to leave. Fagin offers food, shelter, belonging. Everything Oliver has been starving for. But the price is only revealed once you're already dependent on it. Over the next few days, Oliver thinks he has found a community of clever boys who earn their keep in some vague trade. Fagin encourages this misunderstanding. He turns the room into a grotesque classroom, teaching the boys how to pick pockets with the precision of a dancing master. Oliver laughs along at first, not understanding. But when the Dodger and another boy take him out to work, reality hits. At a bookstall, Oliver watches them sidle up to a kindly-looking gentleman, Mr. Brownlow, and lift his wallet. As the boys run away, Oliver, horrified, realizes what they have done. He hesitates, panics, then runs too, straight into suspicion. Almost at once, a shout goes up. The crowd decides the smallest, frightened boy must be the thief. A street chase unfolds, and with Oliver kicked and finally knocked to the ground. It is brutal, not because of any one blow, but because of how easily the crowd's anger falls on a child, and how quickly it assumes guilt based on how he looks, where he is, who he's near. At the magistrate's office, a tired justice named Fang is ready to sentence Oliver without much thought. Another child processed, another problem solved with a signature. But the bookseller, who saw the theft, steps forward. He testifies that he saw other boys commit the crime, and Oliver ran simply out of fear. Mr. Brownlow, moved by the sight of the bruised, barely conscious child, intervenes. Instead of pressing charges, he takes Oliver home. Suddenly, Oliver's world shifts. In Mr. Brownlow's quiet house, he is washed, dressed in decent clothes, and put to bed in clean sheets. There is warmth here, not only from the fire, but from genuine concern. Mr. Brownlow looks at Oliver's face and is struck by a resemblance to a portrait of a young woman in his home. For a brief time, Oliver experiences something close to a normal life. He is given books, sent on errands, and trusted. The empty bowl of his life, that hunger for safety, for love, for someone to believe in him, finally feels as though it is being filled. But the shadow of his past has not vanished. Fagin, furious at losing a boy he considers his property, fears that Oliver will confess what he knows. He begins to plot. He seeks help from a more dangerous associate, Bill Sykes, a violent housebreaker with a brutal temper. Between them stands Nancy, a young woman from Fagin's circle who cares for Oliver more than she admits. It is Nancy who will waylay the boy as he goes out on an errand, dragging him back into the darkness he has just left. Here's the part every soft film version has to wrestle with. Just when Oliver finally finds a good home, and the door slams shut, and the old life drags him back, because escaping isn't a single moment of running away. It's a constant fight against every force that wants to pull you back to where you belong. And if you've ever gotten out of a bad situation, only to find yourself pulled back in by old friends, old habits, old fears, you know exactly how this trap works. If you've ever felt that pull backward, drop a comment below. I read everyone. Dragged back to Fagin's lair, Oliver pleads to be allowed to return. Fagin mocks these protests. In his eyes, affection and trust are luxuries for fools. Oliver is reminded that he has no power and no say. Bill Sykes soon has a use for him. A burglary is being planned, and Sykes needs a small boy who can fit through a narrow window. Oliver refuses at first. His resistance is met with threats and harm. Sykes makes it clear, either Oliver comes along or he will be beaten into submission. At the targeted house, and Oliver is pushed toward a small window and ordered to squeeze through, with Sykes holding a pistol to his side. The boy begs to be allowed to go back. Sykes does not care. The burglary goes badly wrong. The household is alerted, shots are fired, and Oliver is hit. In the confusion, Sykes and his accomplice panic and flee, leaving the wounded boy behind in a ditch. At dawn, Oliver, barely conscious, manages to stagger toward the house they tried to rob. He collapses on the doorstep, where he is discovered by the very people he was meant to help steal from. Mrs. Maylie and her niece Rose are shocked to find a wounded child in the place of the hardened criminal they imagined. They could turn him over to the authorities. Instead, they choose to treat his wound and listen. As Oliver recovers, the truth about his recent miseries comes out. Rose, especially, is moved by his story. She sees his gentleness and believes that he is not naturally corrupt. Oh, when was the last time someone believed in you when you couldn't prove you deserved it? When was the last time someone saw past your circumstances to who you actually were? That's what Rose does for Oliver, and it's the rarest gift in this entire story. While Oliver is being healed and sheltered, the strands of conspiracy tighten elsewhere in London. A mysterious figure named Monks visits Fagin late one night. In shadowy conversations, and it becomes clear that Monks has a personal interest in ensuring Oliver never rises out of criminal surroundings. He knows something about the boy's birth and stands to gain if Oliver's reputation is ruined forever. Monks are driven by resentment and greed. His father was also Oliver's father. A will once existed that might have given Oliver a share of an inheritance, but Monks and his mother did everything they could to destroy the evidence. He pays Fagin to keep Oliver in the gutter, be convinced that if the boy is tainted as a thief, no one will accept him as a gentleman's son. This is the trap that goes beyond beatings and hunger. A man deliberately trying to erase someone else's future on paper. If you have ever felt like someone was waiting for you to fail, so they could say, "I knew it," you know exactly the kind of trap Monks have been trying to set. Listening to these secret meetings is Nancy. She has known Fagin and Sykes since she was a child. He lives with Sykes in a brutal relationship and has participated in the kidnapping of Oliver. Yet she cannot shake her guilt. The more she hears about Monks' schemes, the more she realizes that Oliver is an innocent pawn. Her conscience, long buried under fear and habit, awakens. Nancy's position is tragic. She knows that if she betrays Fagin and Sykes to help Oliver, they will not forgive her. Yet when she sees in Oliver a chance for a child to escape the fate she herself has suffered, she is moved to act. This is where the story starts asking, what do you do when the person you love is also the person who destroys you? She arranges a secret meeting with Rose and Mr. Brownlow. They meet at night on London Bridge, with the river black beneath them. Nancy, worn and shaking, pours out everything she knows. Monks' identity, his relation to Oliver, his determination to wreck the boy's future. She begs them to act quickly, but also begs them not to inform the police, knowing that exposure will bring immediate revenge. Nancy knows she is risking her life, but she has decided that giving Oliver a chance at goodness is worth more than her own safety. She could stay safe. She could keep her mouth shut. She could survive. But she sees in Oliver what she once was, a kid who deserved better, and she can't unsee it. When was the last time you saw someone being treated the way you once were, and you had to choose whether to speak up or stay comfortable? And Nancy chose truth over safety. What did you choose? Drop a comment below with the moment in your life when you had to choose between staying comfortable and speaking up. I read every single one. Back in Fagin's den, suspicion begins to grow. The old man has spies everywhere, and Nancy's nightly absences do not go unnoticed. When he realizes she has been talking to people outside the gang, he alerts Sykes with malicious satisfaction. Bill Sykes reacts with the blunt violence that defines him. Then he returns to the room he shares with Nancy in a rage. Nancy, knowing what is coming, does not run. She tries to explain, to appeal to whatever affection Sykes might have for her. But he sees only treachery. In a scene that shocked Dickens's original readers, he attacks her in a frenzy, and she does not survive. Nancy, who risked everything to help a child climb out of the darkness, is destroyed by the man she has lived with and served. On that bridge, she chose truth over safety, and now she's gone for that choice. And because Nancy chose to save a child instead of herself, two men are about to learn that you can't outrun your conscience. Sykes flees into the night, trying to escape not only the law, but his own conscience. Yet conscience follows him in the form of hallucinations and dread. He keeps seeing Nancy's eyes in every shadow, every face. Eventually, cornered and desperate, Sykes attempts to escape over the rooftops using a rope, and in his frantic effort to get away from a crowd that has turned against him, he slips. The rope tightens around his neck, and he's gone, hanging from the very line meant to save him. While Sykes is destroyed by his own violence, the law finally closes in on Fagin. The police raid his lair, seize his hoard, and drag him before the courts. His trial is swift. The evidence is overwhelming. In the condemned cell, awaiting execution, Fagin is a very different figure from the cunning manipulator of earlier chapters. He is terrified, clinging to his possessions as if they could save him. When Oliver is brought to see him, urged by Mr. Brownlow to ask what Fagin knows about Oliver's birth, the encounter is eerie and intense. Oliver sees the old man broken and begging, and cannot help feeling a degree of pity. Fagin, half out of his wits, refuses to give clear answers. Outside the prison, Mr. Brownlow acts on the information Nancy shared. He tracks down Monks, confronts him, and forces him to speak. Oliver is the illegitimate son of a man named Edwin Leaford and a young woman named Agnes Fleming. Leaford intended to provide for this child, but was gone before his will could be safely carried out. Monks and his mother did everything to suppress this will and ensure that any child she bore would be disgraced. Now Monks admits that he sought out Oliver not to acknowledge him as a brother, but to ruin him. He hoped to drive Oliver deeper into crime so that any claim he might make on a gentleman's inheritance would be laughed out of court. The system was designed to keep Oliver at the bottom, and Monks was betting everything on that system, working exactly as it was supposed to. Mr. Brownlow offers Monks a deal. If Monks will sign over half of his inherited fortune to Oliver and tell the whole story, he will not be publicly exposed. Monks agrees. He later goes abroad, where he wastes his remaining money and perishes in obscurity. For Oliver, the revelations are life-changing. He learns that Agnes, the woman in Mr. Brownlow's portrait, was his mother, and that Rose is Agnes's sister, making Rose his aunt. This discovery gives Oliver a name and a history, weaving together the kindness he has received with the blood ties he never knew he had, and the child who began life as nobody, who was named by a stranger who enjoyed the power of naming, finally sees his real name written into a family story that is his to keep. Mr. Brownlow formally adopts Oliver. They, along with the Maylies, settle in the country. Oliver finally has what he lacked from the beginning: a secure home, a loving family, and an identity not defined by the workhouse register. After all the thresholds he has stumbled through, workhouse doors, shop doors, thieves' dens, quiet houses, prison corridors, he has finally walked through one that stays open. And this time, he's the one holding the handle. Not everyone from the old world is lost. Charlie Bates, one of Fagin's boys, is so horrified by what happened to Nancy and Sykes that he turns away from crime altogether. He becomes a hard-working farm laborer and prospers enough to be considered respectable. Through him, Dickens suggests that even those deeply entangled in wrongdoing can choose another path. You are not stuck being who you were yesterday. Nancy proved that. Charlie proved that. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price of becoming someone different. Others are not so fortunate. Fagin's sentence is carried out. The workhouse officials who mistreated Oliver earlier are embarrassed when the story comes out, but they largely continue their comfortable lives. And that might be the most realistic part of this entire story. The people at the top rarely face consequences. They write reports, they issue statements, they move on. It's the Olivers and the Nancys who pay the price. Oliver's entire life can be reduced to 4 words. Please, sir, I want some more. Here's what makes that sentence so dangerous. Oliver isn't asking for extra, he's asking for enough. And the people in charge hear that request as a threat. Because if one hungry child can stand up and say, I deserve more than this, then all of them can. If one worker can say, I deserve a living wage, then all of them can. If one student can say, I deserve to question this, then all of them can. The system doesn't punish Oliver for being greedy. It punishes him for refusing to accept that hunger is what he deserves. In 2026, the empty bowl is still being passed around, and the doors are still being held by people who decide whether you deserve to walk through them. The names are still being assigned by people who enjoy the small power of defining who you're allowed to be. So here's my question for you, and you need to answer it honestly, even if it's just to yourself. What are you still pretending is enough when you know it isn't? What are you calling yourself grateful for when you're actually just afraid? And who in your life is holding an empty bowl right now, waiting for you to notice? Because the story doesn't end when Oliver gets his happy ending. It ends when you decide whether you're going to stay silent when the next person asks for more, or whether you're finally going to be the person who says, yes, you deserve it. Here, if you know someone who's been told they're asking for too much when they're asking for the minimum, send them this. Now, it's not just because it's a good story, because they need to know they're not alone. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe and leave a like. And share this with the one person you know who is finally ready to ask for more.